Typical Trump. All bluster, very little substance. He talks a tough game, but then when pressed on it, he's an armchair tough guy. I hate to say it, but this is a guy who said that John McCain is not a war hero, that he sought his own 5 military deferments. Because he says big, blustery things that people want to hear, but he goes way too far. And then when the military says, we won't follow illegal orders like torture or killing families, which is not loosening the rules of engagement, he suddenly realizes, wait, I might actually be commander-in-chief.
And I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. There's a standard, there's an ethos, there's a belief that we are above what so many things that our enemies or others would do.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I can just tell you that a con artist is about to take over the Republican Party and the conservative movement, and we have to put a stop to it. And part of it is, look at the report you guys just did. Donald Trump last night had no answers on the issue of health care, and if you listen to that report that just led into this, the media is pumping him up as some sort of unstoppable force. Donald Trump has portrayed himself now consistently as fighting for the working people, and he has a record of sticking it to working people for 35 years. If any other candidate in this race had his record, there would be nonstop reporting on it. But unfortunately, he's being pumped up because many in the media with a bias know that he'll be easy to beat in a general election. So we're going to put a stop to it now. There is no way we are going to allow a con artist to take over the conservative movement, and Donald Trump is a con artist.
So what do you think a Trump government would look like, Senator?
It would be chaos. No one knows, but it would look probably like the positions he's held for all these years. On many of these issues. He is wholly unprepared to be president of the United States. He refuses to answer questions on any specific public policy. He has no plan for health care, for example. They asked him about the debt. He claimed he's going to cut the debt by cutting fraud and abuse, which everyone acknowledges, and he didn't get any follow-up or any press on that, and nobody pressed him on that afterwards. I tried to get the moderators to ask him about it. This is the most important government job on the planet. We're about to turn over the conservative movement to a person that has no ideas of any substance on the important issues, the nuclear codes of the United States, to an erratic individual, and the conservative movement to someone who has spent a career sticking it to working people.
Please let us get a few more questions.
Donald Trump is leading in the polls.
You have failed to do this so far?
No, well, but first of all, I would prefer not to get into a fight with other Republicans, but I would much more prefer not to turn over the party to a con artist like Donald Trump. And last night is the last debate before Super Tuesday, and I'm asking everyone watching tonight, if you're a Republican and you don't want your party taken over by a con artist like Donald Trump, unite behind us, go to our website, marcorubio.com, and join us so we can put an end to this lunacy.
Let me just tell my friends, who I really do respect, if you're embracing Donald Trump, you're destroying conservatism. You will make it hard for this party to ever regain footing with Hispanics because his immigration proposal is unworkable, is hateful. When it comes to women, we're alienating women who should be coming our way after 8 years of Obama. So to my friends, if you think Donald Trump is the answer to the Republicans' problems with women and Hispanics, I disagree. If you think his foreign policy is sound, you're obviously not listening to the same man I'm listening to. So there's a civil war going on in the Republican Party. I hope and pray that Ted Cruz, who is a reliable conservative, can carry the banner in November so we don't get wiped out.
Did establishment candidates underestimate him?
Well, he's at 13%. You can say outrageous things on the left and right. Some people follow behind you, but I'm confident of this, that my party in 2015 does not believe that the vast majority of illegal immigrants are drug dealers and rapists. I know we don't. And as to Donald Trump, he would be a terrible commander-in-chief. The way he is conducting himself is contrary to the values I hold as a Republican, and I think most of us accept as a nation. You're running to lead a great nation. You're running to be the most powerful voice in the entire world. And when you use that voice to demean and slander a whole group of people who are hardworking, decent, with some criminals in the middle of them, not only have you hurt my party, you have, I think, hurt our nation. And I will not be part of this. I am confident the Republican Party will reject it.
I'm going to do something I haven't done for the entire campaign. For those of y'all who have traveled with me all across the country, I'm going to tell you what I really think of Donald Trump. This man is a pathological liar. He doesn't know the difference between truth and lies. He lies practically every word that comes out of his mouth. And in a pattern that I think is straight out of a psychology textbook, his response is to accuse everybody else of lying. He accuses everybody on that debate stage of lying. And it's simply a mindless yell. Whatever he does, he accuses everyone else of doing. The man cannot tell the truth, but he combines it with being a narcissist. A narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever seen. Think about the next 5 years. The boasting, the pathological lying, the picking up the National Enquirer and accusing people of killing JFK, the bullying. Think about your kids coming back and emulating this. For people in Indiana who long for a day when we were nice to each other, when we treated people with respect, when we didn't engage in sleaze and lies. And I would note one of the lies he engages in. Listen, Donald Trump is a serial philanderer, and he boasts about it. This is not a secret. He's proud of being a serial philanderer. I want everyone to think about your teenage kids. The President of the United States talks about how great it is to commit adultery, how proud he is. Describes his battles with venereal disease as his own personal Vietnam. That's a quote, by the way, on the Howard Stern show. Do you want to spend the next 5 years with your kids bragging about infidelity? Now, what does he do? He does the same projection. Just like a pathological liar, he accuses everyone of lying. Even though he boasts about his infidelity, he plants in David Pecker's National Enquirer a lie about me and my family, attacking my family. He accuses others of doing what he is doing.
Ways is not just that the Republican Party base is somehow fundamentally flawed in a way that's unique in American political history. It's that Trump is a really bad candidate, and frankly, I think a really bad person.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him, and I've noticed this willingness from people who think a lot like I do. That, look, we told you so. To all these white working class voters, we told you so. We told you that Trump was going to be a terrible candidate. We told you that you were an idiot if you voted for him. The problem is, if you take that attitude of sort of gloating over Trump's defeat, then you're playing into the very thing that gave rise to Trump in the first place, which is a feeling that the elites think that they're smarter than you and just think you're a bunch of idiots. Right, one of the biggest drivers of Trump's support, and one of the things that's most predictive of his support, is that you express cynicism about the future and a belief that your kids.
That's what he gives voice to every time he makes some campaign stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You think about the way that he talks about.
Your cynicism is appropriate.
Absolutely.
Because those people don't care.
Absolutely. You think about the slogan, "Make America Great Again." The implication is that America isn't great right now, and if you're very unhappy about your life, that's going to resonate.
Do you think this is a large number of people? Do you think this is enough people to elect Donald Trump?
No, I don't think it's a large enough people to elect Donald Trump. I think that this election is really having a negative effect, especially on the white working class, right? Because I think a lot of these grievances are legitimate, but what it's doing is it's giving people an excuse to point the finger at someone else. It's point the finger at Mexican immigrants or Chinese trade or the Democratic elites or whatever else. And sometimes these villains are legitimate. I think it's totally fair to say that the policy elites of the Democratic Party haven't been totally concerned about the white working class. But at the same time, fundamentally what's going on and what Donald Trump has done is change the focus of the white working class from a sort of engaged and constructive politics to a politics of pointing the finger. You know, the media has sort of asked me to be the spokesman for the white working class voter who's voting for Trump, right? But as somebody who doesn't like Trump myself, I understand where Trump's voters come from, but I also don't like Trump himself, and that's made me realize that maybe I'm not quite part of either world totally.
In 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, "Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism." You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record.
It's hard to say what's happening now in our country. I think, it's all, many people have this kind of atavistic urge for a leader who is kind of a man on horseback, who is decisive, who's violent, and who can point fingers at people. And that always has an attraction to a certain segment of the population. It's scary now.
Are you solidly for Hillary, or are you more anti-Trump?
No, I'm solidly for Hillary. I think Hillary is going to be a very, very good president.
There is no question in my mind that Donald Trump is unfit to serve as President Commander-in-Chief. I've said this over and over again. I am running for president to defeat him for that reason. He has made many decisions that are counter to the best interests of the American people, our country, and our national security. Look, he launched an illegal and unconstitutional attack, launching missiles into Syria. We don't see any of the talk in Congress about that. In fact, we saw leaders in Congress supporting him from both parties when doing that. He tore up the Iran nuclear agreement and has taken action since, step by step, to further push us closer and closer to the brink of war with Iran that would be far more devastating than the war in Iraq, and leading us to the point where every single day that there is no nuclear deal with Iran, Iran is closer to developing a nuclear weapon. There's such a long list. Trump's continuing to support Saudi Arabia, continuing to support this genocidal war in Yemen, thumbing his nose at Congress even after we voted invoking the War Powers Resolution and vetoing that and saying, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. The list is long. I'm running for president to defeat Donald Trump, to bring our country together, and to lead us towards a bright future with a government that's actually focused on serving the people of this country.